It will come as no surprise to those of you who have cracked open as many heads as I have, that the brain is a roughly symmetrical structure with a left and right hemisphere. And I would guess that most of you know that for most of us, 90 to 99% that is, the left side of our brain controls the right side of our body and vice versa. Each of our eyes might take in the full visual field, but the signals are again differentiated such that the right hemisphere receives the left visual field input and the left hemisphere the right visual field input. The other differentiation of note here is that for most of us, speech control is in the left hemisphere of the brain. The corpus callosum sits between the two hemispheres and allows communication between them. One treatment for patients suffering from chronic epilepsy is to sever the corpus callosum, which prevents the brainstorms of electricity which incapacitate the patient, and the treatment can be very effective. This treatment has given the medical profession an opportunity to investigate the interaction of the brain's two hemispheres through experimentation, with, as they say, some surprising results. Here, a patient is presented with two different words, one to each visual field, while behind a screen, out of sight, the patient has a selection of objects to choose from. They are then asked to read what they see and pick up that object. Now, the left hemisphere receives the word ring, and with the speech center also in the left hemisphere, the patient says ring. However, the input from the left visual field, the word key, goes to the right hemisphere, which controls the left hand, which picks up the key. A similar task is to flash words to each visual field in turn and ask the patient to repeat what they see. Each time a word is flashed to the right visual field, they can repeat it, while a word flashed to the left visual field is ignored as if they never saw it. But ask them to draw with their left hand what they see in their left visual field, and they do so correctly, though they cannot say what it is that they've drawn until they view their own picture with their right visual field. Is this two brains not talking to each other, or just one interrupted brain? Here's a simple test you can do for yourself. Take a pencil in each hand. With the left hand draw a square, and with the right hand a circle, simultaneously. You can't do it because of the communication and interaction between your two hemispheres. A split brain patient has no problem drawing these two shapes simultaneously because they have a distinct brain available for each task. But it gets more interesting still. Now the patient is presented with two images, one to each visual field as normal. In this case, a chicken's foot is presented to the right visual field and a snowy scene to the left. The patient is then asked to select, with each hand independently, a picture connected to the images they have seen. The right hand selects a chicken from the available pictures. The left hand selects a shovel from the available pictures, presumably to shovel away the snow. All fine and well until the patient is asked why they chose the objects. The left hemisphere speech center doesn't know what the right hemisphere was up to. The patient starts by saying that they picked the chicken because they thought it was a chicken's foot. No problem, because the chicken's foot, chicken, and speech are all coming from the left hemisphere of the brain. But rather than say that they don't know why they picked the shovel, which is what we might expect, they concoct a story, invent a motivation, and say, "I'll need the shovel to muck out the chicken shed." That is not why they picked the shovel, or rather, why the right hemisphere picked the shovel. But they are now talking with their left hemisphere, which is clueless as to the inputs and outputs of the right hemisphere. In other experiments, the instruction, "Get up and walk across the room," was presented to the non-speaking hemisphere. The patient got up and walked across the room, but when asked why they did so, instead of saying, "I don't know," they said, "Because I was thirsty," or some such invented motivation, which was clearly not the real reason they carried out the action. In both cases, the left hemisphere is rationalizing actions after the event and creating a memory as to why the action was taken. It is inventing a cause for the effect. And I think this is profound. Think about it for a minute in a wider context. We all have left hemispheres, equally capable of rationalizing actions after the event and creating a memory as to why we carried out any action. Might you and I be rationalizing things every day without knowing it and fully believing in what our brains have invented to fill in gaps in reasoning and logic? Going even further, is it not possible, or even probable, that our biochemical brain is simply reacting to stimuli and is then creating a story to rationalize the actions we take, and what we consider to be our consciousness is, at least in part, inventing motivations constructed from our language centers to explain the actions we are experiencing being carried out? When we consider all of the possible actions we might take under any set of circumstances, this seems a very possible reality to me. And when I get around to presenting a brief overview of the amygdala, I think this rationalization will become more evident. And finally, this left hemisphere pattern matching cause and effect calculator constructor is probably a blessing and a curse. The need to explain cause and effect is what has driven scientific exploration of our world forward, but the ready acceptance of facile explanations which our brains have simply invented might possibly explain why the superstitious mind holds sway in so many people. Again, I hope to explore this further in future videos. But for now, from both of us, thanks as always for watching.